Hello and welcome back to another episode of the For the Property Investor podcast. And we're here with the weekly news, of course. And the only way I know that is because I'm staring at Nick Bendel. Hello, Nick. You're the man that brings us the news.
Hello, Owen. I love the way you stare at me with those piercing brown eyes.
Yeah, brown. Some say hazel, some say
Hmm.
grey. Yeah.
Well, they are very impressive eyes.
Oh, thank you. It's let's move on before it gets even weirder. It's uh Nick, thanks for joining us again. What's been happening in your week for the past week?
Well, I'm very excited. I'm not so much looking back as looking forward. Well, in fact, let me look back a little bit. We recorded this the day, our last podcast the day before the RBA decision. The RBA came out and raised rates, of course, and we're recording this podcast the day before the federal budget, which always excites me. And
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. My Business Hunter and Scribe is a copywriting agency that writes content for finance and property businesses. The budget's going to be published at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and we're writing two reports for two clients, a mortgage broker and a financial advisor, and we'll deliver them the reports within 12 hours, i.e. by 8 a.m. the day after. So our clients can deliver the reports to their clients while the budget is still fresh.
Wow, that's amazing. Well done, Nick. And yes, it might be the budget to end all budgets and maybe the budget to end our economy as well. Who knows?
Well, in that case, it's been nice knowing you, and I've really enjoyed the run. It's been a good run while it lasted.
Yes. Um, all right, well, exciting stuff. Nick, let's get into the news. What have you brought us this week?
Well, let's start with the RBA. RBA says things will get worse before they get better. New Reserve Bank forecasts have suggested that inflation will stay higher for longer and interest rates will keep rising. The RBA noted that, quote, prices were rising strongly across the economy before the Middle East conflict began, with the annual inflation rate climbing from 1.9% in June 2025 to 3.7% in February, just before the war began. Now, the war has made the inflation picture worse. Due to higher fuel prices, inflation rose to 4.6% in the March quarter, and according to the RBA, will rise to 4.8% in June before falling to 4% by December. The RBA expects the cash rate, which is now at 4.35%, will rise to 4.7% by the end of this year, which would mean another one or two rate hikes are coming. Economic growth, which was 2.6% in 2025, is expected to slow to 1.3% in 2026. Wages growth is forecast to fall slightly from 3.4 to 3.2%, while the unemployment rate is expected to stay flat at 4.3%. So, Owen, assuming inflation does indeed keep rising, I'm wondering how much of the blame should be attributed to Donald Trump and how much to Anthony Albanese?
Well, I guess the Don needs to take some of the blame with pushing up fuel prices, that's for sure. But the underlying problem with inflation does that's been going on for a while now certainly lies with the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Yes, it's easy to forget that we've had three rate rises so far, but the first two happened before the war. And that was in response to the fact that inflation has been climbing since the middle of last year. So the RBA already felt it was out of control and something needed to be done. And then old mate Trump just went and made things worse.
Yes, and there was a good chance this third one was going to happen. If not now, then in fairly soon anyway. So it just brought forward the inevitable. Yeah, it's quite distressing to see that this government just can't see past their nose about with the choices that they're making and what the long-term implications are. It's they always have uh, good intentions, but good intentions don't pay the bills, do they?
Inflation and interest rates, they've been bouncing around over the past few years. But for the past 2 years, the unemployment rate has been remarkably steady. It stayed between 3.9 and 4.5%, even though there have been periods when the economy has strengthened and periods when it's weakened. And even now with the Middle East war, the RBA expects unemployment to hold steady at 4.3%. Owen, do you have any theories as to why the unemployment rate has been so steady?
Yes, it's quite interesting that unemployment is rising. We're supposed to be in a cost of living crisis. Everyone's, businesses are doing it tough as well as individuals, but employment is still strong. It's if you'd wonder what would have happened if we weren't having all of these new Australians arrive in the last number of years, as to where the unemployment rate would be there. And maybe wages growth would have gone through the roof a bit more because there would have been less supply within the labour market. And so the need for the government to employ so many people might not have been there. The need for the government, therefore, to spend so much money might not have been there. And so this artificial injection of cash into the economy at the taxpayer's expense might have been not needed after all. So it's it's quite distressing to see what's happening to our economy by the choices of this federal government.
You mentioned that businesses are suffering. The Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry says, quote, businesses are being hit from all sides, and that's due to costs rising and demand slowing. And at the same time, given the low unemployment rate we've just discussed, businesses are still finding it hard to recruit quality staff. Oh, and you're a business owner. Any thoughts about what businesses can do to survive this particular climate?
Yeah, well, it's tough, and we're seeing it ourselves in our business, trying to find good staff
Mm.
and keep them and afford them, because yes, the costs of wages is going up, and it's a real thing. So what cost? Businesses have to start looking at ways of becoming more efficient, where they don't need to rely on staff, whether that's outsourcing to overseas staff, offshore staff that are at a cheaper rate, or looking at AI options, way of employing AI to be able to have your current staff become more efficient so you can do more business with your current staffing levels. And that's something that a lot of businesses are all looking at. And yes, it's and there's always software tools and other pieces of software that you can employ to be able to, again, help your current staff become more efficient, and so that you can get more business without having to employ more staff.
I like that. Outsourcing and delegating. Isn't that what Jim Chalmers has done with the RBA, just kind of outsourcing his economic policy to them?
Yes, maybe he should uh, ask around about how he can outsource the rest of the economic management.
Well, let's move on to our next story. Battlers struggling to afford rental accommodation. Australians on low incomes have been priced out of the vast majority of the rental market, according to Anglicare Australia's 17th annual rental affordability report. The report, which surveyed about 49,000 rental listings across Australia, found just one rental property nationwide was affordable for a person on job seeker. 0 rentals were affordable for a person on youth allowance. 0.2% of rentals were affordable for a single person on the age pension. 0.5% were affordable for a worker on the full-time minimum wage. And 14.8% of rentals were affordable for a couple with 2 minimum wage incomes. While listing numbers remain higher than in some recent years, this has not improved access for low-income households, according to the report. Even households in full-time work on the minimum wage now face limited access to affordable housing. Families who once had a broader range of options can now afford a much smaller share of the market. Over time, the gap between incomes and rents has widened. Owen, your business, Leafield, it's a property management business across 5 states, so you have a very good overview of the national rental market. Do Anglicare's numbers seem accurate to you? And if so, how concerned should we be about their findings?
Well, it's very concerning, and in some ways, I'm not really surprised by their findings. It's we see a lot of people that are applying for properties where they can't afford it, and they're either getting some kind of government assistance or assistance from organisations like Anglicare to be able to afford these properties. And guess where a lot of the funding for organisations like Anglicare come for providing assistance to housing? It's through government funding. So it's it's kind of strange that it's on one hand, the government is complaining and threatening in tomorrow's budget to take away tax incentives to investors who are providing housing for renters. But on the other hand, they're giving actual cash handouts to organisations to be able to help provide housing to renters. So yes, these are renters who are at the bottom of the list, bottom of the pile, and certainly need help. But the number one way to provide more help and to help rents come down in price is to provide more supply. And the taxpayer can't take on that burden for the whole market. But with the help of private investors, that could certainly help. So they should be actually talking about doing the opposite. And we will be looking with bated breath to see if they actually, if they're going to take with one hand but give with the other in some way to be able to help private investment take on a lot of this burden to provide more housing for the rental sector.
So we've been talking about the problem, which is a lack of rental affordability. Let's move on to what's caused the problem. Anglicare says the problem has not been caused by short-term factors, but reflects two longer-term shifts. Governments providing less housing and housing being turned from somewhere you live to a financial asset. What do you think of Anglicare's analysis?
It's, secondly, about it being turned into a financial asset. Well, it always has been a financial asset. If you're buying something and you're borrowing against it, and the price are they concerned about the pricing going up? It's always been like that forever. So I'm not quite sure what they're insinuating by that. Government's providing less housing. It's like, well, yes, I believe they are. And that is a longer term issue. But that's where they're turning around and providing funding to organisations like Anglicare to be able to help people on the lower rungs of the rental ladder to be able to afford to pay rent. So it's is that not better than the government actually owning housing? We've all seen, well, maybe not all of us, but we all know of areas in the past that have been called housos, and where basically these suburbs or sections within suburbs are known as houso areas, and they're just full of housing commission, and where yes, they're not run properly. It's just not a good environment for people to live in, where every single property in a particular area or suburb is government supplied housing. So let's spread it out amongst the community, so that you haven't got people just living in what becomes an undesirable area. And so the more people are spread out amongst the community so that they can interact in the community rather than being surrounded by everyone who is in government housing. It's just not ideal.
So we've talked about what Anglicare says the problem is and what Anglicare says the cause of the problems are. Let's move on to what Anglicare says are the solutions to the problem. Anglicare has proposed 3 solutions. First, governments should provide more public and community housing. Second, the federal government should increase welfare payments. And third, the federal government should eliminate the CGT discount and reduce negative gearing benefits. Go through each of those 3 proposals, Owen, and let me know your thoughts.
Well, I mean, all of them just put more and more of a burden on the taxpayer to be able to not just provide a safety net, but will essentially have this retaining wall holding up society, which is just untenable. It just is something that just cannot work long term. I mean, yes, we want to provide support for the people who are not in a position to help themselves, either due to physical or mental incapacities. But please, yeah, we're at this point where almost half the population is on some kind of government benefits or employment. So yeah, from all 3 levels of government. So how is that a society and an economy that can actually survive on its own 2 feet? So yeah, more public housing and community housing. Yeah, sure, to be able to get people off the streets and to be able to support those people who can't help themselves. Don't have a problem with that at all. Yeah, it's better than just giving cash handouts to be able to help anyone and everyone pay their rent. Increasing welfare payments. Well, I think again, if we're helping people who are in a position where they cannot help themselves, don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with welfare payments going to people who absolutely can help themselves. And yes, it's so it's not a great environment. Why are we taking the burden off families helping other members of their own family? Why does it fall on the government and the taxpayer to be able to prop up our society? And it's just another way of degrading the family unit and degrading the family support structure. So yes, if you can help yourself, if you've got the physical and mental capacity to be able to do so, then it's should be your responsibility to pick yourself up and do that.
Okay, well, our final story today is something different to some of the other stories we've had in previous podcast episodes. Going to be very keen to get your thoughts. ACTU calls for less work, more leave. Australian unions have demanded sweeping changes to workplace standards, including a shorter working week and an extra week of annual leave, as part of a parliamentary inquiry into the national employment standards. The ACTU argued the workers should benefit more from productivity gains and technological advances through reduced working hours. Their proposal includes cutting the standard working week from 38 to 35 hours, with sector-specific alternatives and 4-day work week models where possible. Under the proposal, workers' pay and conditions, including penalty rates and overtime, would remain protected. The ACTU also called for annual leave entitlements to rise from 4 to 5 weeks per year and from 5 to 6 weeks for shift workers. ACTU President Michelle O'Neill said Australians were working record-long hours and that these proposals would lead to more productivity and less burnout. Owen, what do you think of the ACTU's proposal to shorten the working week and increase annual leave while keeping wages at their current level?
I mean, why don't we all retire early at 45 and let's up the pension to 50 grand a year for everyone as well. So that and so that we don't have to rely on ourselves to be able to fund our own retirement. It's like, that sounds like a great idea, Nick. I mean, seriously, it's just fucking stupid. I mean, it's the ACTU has just got no idea what this country is going through. We're on the verge of economic collapse with what the federal government is doing to our economy, and they want us to work less. Productivity is falling through the floor at the moment for our whole economy. And we got interest rate rises, we got inflation pressures, we got wage increases, and they want to work less. I mean, why do you think our manufacturing is nil in this country now? It's because of these ACTU unions and union leaders who want to continually undermine and just, they're just killing our country and our economy. It's just fucking stupid.
Okay, so reading between the lines, it sounds like you might be against it. Let me push back on that. Parkinson's law famously states, work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Now, I'm being serious here. Is it possible that if we reduce the working week from 38 to 35 hours, as per Parkinson's law, we would get the same amount of work done?
How are they going to... apparently. But, it's the same argument for working from home. Now, I don't have a problem with people working from home. My whole business is working remotely. We don't have an office. We all work remotely from home. I don't have an issue with that. But there are a lot of businesses that do, because they have found that the productivity has fallen. How do you guarantee that? And once you've closed the gate on the 38-hour work week, you can't get that back. As soon as you give that lollipop to the 5-year-old, you're never getting it back.
I'll have to take your word for that. I don't have kids, but let me run something else by you. What do you think of the idea of keeping the working week at 38 hours, but putting those hours into 4 days rather than 5, and thereby increasing the weekend from 2 days to 3 days?
If it works for your business, then great. How about we just leave businesses to work it out with their employees of what works best for the employee and the business, and if it doesn't work for them, then the business can find another employee who it might work for them, or vice versa. The employee can go find another employer that has a setup that works for them. Let's leave it to individuals to work it out. Let's stop trying to tell people how to run their fucking lives because you're in government or you're a union member, union leader. It's just like, leave us alone. Leave us alone to run our own lives. Why is the government trying to interfere? Why are the unions trying to interfere with our lives all the time?
Well, food for thought there for our federal government and the ACTU. I will make sure that they get a copy of the podcast and we will look forward to their feedback. Thank you, as always, Owen, for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, Nick, and looking forward to pulling apart this federal budget that we're going to get. See you next week.